This is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with another in-depth deck overview, this time for Rakdos Goblins in Modern. As a friendly reminder, if you do like these informative-based Modern videos, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving us a thumbs up, and leaving a constructive comment down below. So let's get into it. So Goblins is an archetype that has been around in some form or other for quite some time, and has just continued to gain piece after piece. When Conspicuous Snoop was printed, with the infinite combo that the deck has available to it, it popped up for quite a while, and then disappeared as many tribal decks tended to do. And then as Rundvelt Hordemaster was printed in Dominaira United, it's a deck that has popped up again as its beatdown plan has gotten a little bit better. To start out with, the deck has a infinite combo with Conspicuous Snoop, which has, as long as a goblin is on the top of your library, Conspicuous Snoop gets that ability. What it does is it goes and makes Kiki-Jiki, or you want to search up Kiki-Jiki with Boggart Harbinger on top of your library, to put this on top of your library, and then you make infinite copies with your Conspicuous Snoop. You then, with the last copy of your Kiki-Jiki activation from Conspicuous Snoop, you copy Boggart Harbinger and go and find some either Sling Gang Commander or Mog Fanatic, sack your board, kill your opponent for infinite damage or infinite life loss. So this deck has this infinite combo it has access to, aided by things like Ether Vial to be able to play it at instant speed, end of turn, untap, kill your opponent. Once again, the combo revolves around Conspicuous Snoop, Boggart Harbinger, Kiki-Jiki the Mirror Breaker. There are other different things you can use, but that is the main actual instant win combo. The rest of the deck is kind of a value mid-range deck. Obviously, you are able to play Goblins off the top of your deck with Conspicuous Snoop. You're able to tutor up any of your various bullets with either Goblet Matron or Boggart Harbinger. And then you have the various different things. Mog Fanatic is an early interaction, an early threat, and also a way to infinitely combo. Skirk Prospector is a way to get ahead on mana by sacrificing some of your goblins. Mog War Marshal is kind of 3 bodies in one, pairs quite nicely with Prospector. Goblin Crater Maker is kind of your tutor-up answer to deal with annoying things like Eldrazi's, Chalices, any of that kind of, any artifacts. So Karn the Great Creator, Karn Liberated, etc. Sting Scourger is a way to bounce any target creature to its opponent's hand. And then Munitions Expert, when you have a bunch of goblins in play, is a way to kill most of your opponent's smaller creatures. Then the more goblins you have in play, the more creatures it happens to kill. Be aware that your opponent can respond to this with a trigger on the stack, and potentially kill till you have less goblins and you need to kill the target. Pastlic Mons is an interesting one that makes it problematic for whenever your opponent kills your creatures, that you start being able to shoot down either their life total or start killing their creatures. Goblin Ringleader is kind of a way to refill on various cards. This card used to see a little bit more play when it was first introduced to the format, but as you've seen, the deck gets quite chocked full with all the different things. Sling Gang Commander is kind of your way to close out the games with the infinite combo, and is also a decent value engine against various different decks, forcing your opponent to take a bunch of life loss. Also makes it very difficult for decks like Burn to close out the game, and is one of the reasons why Goblins has a fairly reasonable Burn matchup. And finally, if you can actually cast it, Kiki-Jiki can obviously make copies of pretty much everything in your deck, getting quite far ahead, and obviously is part of the Snoop combo. Beyond that, you're running the 2-color mana base with a bunch of Caverns of Souls to make your goblins uncounterable, along with Ether Vial. Thinking counterspell is not exactly the best way to attack this deck. Beyond that, you do have a solid beatdown plan, obviously, with Rundvelt Hordemaster. Also, with our other different lords, you can add Goblin Warchief if you felt so inclined, etc. But it's going to kind of crowd it out by all the different things going on with the deck. And beyond that, we've kind of covered everything in the main deck. Sideboard, Void Mirror for any type of cascading shenanigans, or also good against Eldrazi Tron, and sometimes Green Tron. Leyline the Void for any type of graveyard nonsense, such as Murktide based decks. You might bring in some number of these, but also for Living End and for Reanimator style decks. Thoughtseize and Inquisition when you need to break up important pieces of your opponent's deck, whether you're against a control deck or possibly something like one of the combo decks like Belcher or such. Alpine Moon, fairly reasonable against anything with Urza's Saga, Tron lands, etc. Could come in potentially against Amulet Titan and such, but is isn't quite good as Blood Moon in that regard, and you can't really afford to play Blood Moon as much in your color-intensive 2-color deck. Goblin Trashmaster, a way to deal with most of your opponent's artifacts while also having a random Lord effect attached to it. Magus of the Moon, like I said, you can play Blood Moon, but it's not always the best. It tends to work best when you have Aether Vial, where you're not relying on your black-based goblins in the matchup, because obviously you're only playing the one basic swamp, and you only have a few fetch lands to find it. So this is generally better as kind of a close out the game once you've kind of pulled ahead, way to kind of color screw your opponent against the 4 and 5 color mana bases that have popped up more and more. Shattering Spree, once again, very good against artifact decks, Urza Saga decks, Hammer Time, etc. Taking a look at this deck, you have seeing a lot of the same things. Really, there isn't any too many changes to the main deck. You have one more copy of Mog Fanatic with this one. You're not running the Goblin Crater Maker in the main deck. And, you run the second copy of Goblin Ringleader, especially if you're expecting a little bit more grindy things, like 4-color, 5-color Omnath piles, etc. Sideboards, you're seeing a lot of the same options, although they're choosing to go with Chalice of the Void, which is better in a little bit more of a matchup spread than Void Mirror is. Obviously, Void Mirror really hits those Cascade decks hard. Chalice, and also is fairly decent against the Elementals decks, forcing them to hardcast all of their things. Chalice of the Void here, can be good against decks like Burn and such in the early turns, while not really hampering your play much, as you don't have too many 1-mana plays, and some of the 1-mana plays you do have, you can force through with Cavern of Souls, or you can play your Aether Vials early and then play out your Chalices. Goblin Crater Maker, once again, being in the sideboard. Magus, we've already kind of talked about. Fury is kind of a way to deal with problematic opponents' creatures. Quite nice in a deck if you're playing a bunch of red spells. And then, obviously, copies of Thoughtseize to break up your opponent's combo. What makes Goblins special in the format is it has this, obviously, instant speed combo that can win on as quickly as turn 3, playing the Conspicuous Snoop on 2, untapping with it, and then casting a Boggart Harbinger, and then kind of going nuts from there. It still has a decent beatdown plan. It's quite good into a bunch of removal, making it one of the few tribal decks in the format that really can survive the beating that the Modern Horizons 2 has unleashed on the format. The Furies of the world, the Solitudes of the world. This deck has quite a very good value plan, while also forcing your opponent to respect, Conspicuous Snoop anytime it comes down, and you can just kind of outvalue them, and then you have all these different tutors to be able to find all of your different bullets. Now, obviously, this deck has access to a lot of other things, and there are more aggressive events of mono red goblins that are running the Goblin Bushwhacker, Reckless Bushwhacker combo. Tends to be a little bit more of a budget deck, running Goblin Grenade, but this has definitely proven to be the better deck of the long haul. It's very good against the mid-range decks of the format. Very good at containing things like 4-color, 5-color Omnath piles, or at least contending with them. It's not necessarily favored against them, but it can contend with them. It can contend with most of the top-tier decks of the format. Gives Murktide a little bit of fits because of its counterability stuff, ability to kill all their early creatures, and making their Murktides kind of their main way to close out the game, while also threatening this instant speed combo that they always have to respect with either a counter spell or some type of removal spell for Conspicuous Snoop on site. Rhinos is probably a fairly reasonable matchup, as you can put enough bodies in the way to make the Rhinos a little bit worse. But decks like Living End and such are probably problematic, although this deck does have some ways to sacrifice all their stuff to potentially get it back. And obviously having access to Leyline of the Void in the sideboard helps out that matchup immensely. As far as aggressive decks, there aren't too many of those left in the format. You basically have Hammer Time and Burn as kind of the leftover aggressive decks left in the format that might see widespread play. This deck has a fairly decent Burn matchup, as someone who's piloted a lot of Burn against this deck over the years. Sling Dang Lieutenant makes that matchup absolutely miserable if they're able to find it, and even their kind of grindy plan can make Burn life miserable if you have to spend too many Burn spells on their creatures to stay alive. And then, obviously they have that instant speed or that instant win combo that you have to respect at all times. And if you're on a hand of say, a bunch of Boros Charms and Lava Spikes, you have a hard time having enough interaction for Conspicuous Snoop, etc. As far as Hammer Time, I'm not quite sure how the matchup goes. You do see things like Goblin Crater Maker, Trash Master, Fury in the sideboard, so I imagine the matchup is fine. You have a lot of chump blockers in your deck, and as long as you can avoid losing to something like Ink Moth combo or getting punked out by a quick hammer, I can see this deck easily managing the Hammer Time matchup. as Hammer Time does not have a ton of instant speed removal, and, you know, Conspicuous Snoop combo, kind of getting them out while you're able to kind of keep their combos a little bit at bay. This is a deck, like I said, I don't have a ton of familiarity with it other than playing against it with Burn, but, you know, as a deck that is both a resilient combo deck, has a lot of card advantage. So basically any creature deck that sees play in the format, this kind of checks all the boxes. The things you see out of Hammer Time, the things you see out of Golgari Yawgmoth, you know, you're seeing a lot of the same things out of this deck. You have this Oops, I Win combo, this decent backup beatdown plan, and ability to grind. All of those are kind of important in a format where Fury, Solitude, Omnath itself, and a bunch of removal spells are kind of the eau de jour of the day. So, you know, if you want a resilient combo/aggro deck that isn't necessarily on the beaten path and does take a little bit of getting used to, this can certainly be the deck for you. It does have the backup plan of playing Blood Moon if you're careful with how you fetch your lands, etc. Or just happen to have an Aether Vial to cast the relevant boggarts and stuff that you might need. And, you know, have the ability to play things like Fury and such to help out against other creature-based decks. You know, this is kind of a very powerful deck and something you should certainly consider adding to your repertoire if you want something a little bit off the beaten path, but can still be very competitive and win a lot of matches for you in Modern. As always, if you like these deck overviews, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving us a thumbs up, leaving a constructive comment down below, and let me know what deck you might like to see us cover next.